So I have a feeling that a lot of people listening, they're like, oh, I really want to do this. They may have been a psychiatrist for like 10 years, or they could have been a fitness trainer for 10 years. Like, bring that online and integrate the travel piece with it, because you're going to have so much more success if you're able to grow your cult following from your area of expertise. And that's going to help you land the collaborations and the opportunities in the travel space.
Welcome, Danielle, to the High Vibe Podcast. I am so freaking excited to have you on. I've been following you for a couple of years now. I actually bought you have a handbook, like a guidebook for becoming a travel creator. And I actually bought that, and I thought it was so helpful. So it's kind of like a full circle moment also for me to have you on here. But for those of you that don't know, Danielle Hu is an online business mentor, host of the Wanderlover Podcast, a full-time traveler of over 5 years. She has worked with hundreds of clients and customers, all while traveling and surfing around the world. Dream life. Her mission is to enable you to design a life of freedom, location freedom, time freedom, financial freedom through starting and scaling your own online business. And she also has her own online coaching programs where she mentors people as well. So thank you so much, Danielle, for being on the High Vibe Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Tori. I'm so excited to be here.
And I would love to hear personally, because I don't know your full story. I just know a gist of it. You used to work in the corporate world and in finance, similar to me. And now I just see you traveling the world full time, working from your laptop. So I would really love to hear like your whole story. Take us from the beginning.
For sure. Yeah. So it's funny because my entrepreneurship journey actually started when I was in corporate, and you can probably relate how you just felt like, or I just felt like a cog in the wheel, felt like you were meant for so much more. Your creativity was stifled, and it was just not the path you wanted to be on. At that point, I had studied abroad in college, and I just loved meeting new people, experiencing new cultures, traveling to new places. And I really wanted to carry on that excitement in my life, as well as have a business that aligned with what I wanted to do. So I really saw entrepreneurship as my way out of that. I would look around at my managers or executives in finance, and I was like, that's not where I want to be in 10, 20 years.
That's my exact story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I would go on Instagram and see like influencers and entrepreneurs working from co-working spaces in Bali. And that's when I knew like, this isn't the path for me, and I need to try new things and get myself to a place where I can be working from my laptop. And so it was really messy in the first few years. I started the Wanderlover. It was at that time just a travel blog. I started drop shipping. I started Amazon FBA. I was in e-commerce. I had like a sex toys business. So I tried it all.
Were you doing this on the side, or did you just, okay.
Yeah, like on my lunch breaks, weekends, I stopped partying, and I really found the time, because it was an indicator like, this is what I want to invest my time in, and this is what I'm so passionate about that I'm willing to sacrifice, my habits and what I used to do for fun. So I really knew that I was onto something. When I made my first sales, when I started to monetize my blog, and all of that started basically proving to me that if I dedicated all of my time to this, I could grow it and scale it. That was the confidence in myself that I needed. That was my sign to quit. So I gave myself a quit date. I told myself, I'm going to hand in my 2 weeks resignation, and I'm going to book a one-way ticket. At that point, I was still with my ex-boyfriend, but as soon as we broke up, it was like a sequence of events where my whole life just changed, and I knew I wanted to be somewhere else. I knew I wanted to be away from this relationship, this job, this city. And yeah, this was in 2017 when I quit, and early 2018, I was on a flight to Australia.
Wow. So how long, like your quit date, was it like you're going to give yourself 6 months to try and build it up, or were you just to like build up some savings, or did you just like jump right in?
It was a year. I had a
Oh, yeah.
year's runway. And it
Okay.
was actually because one of my coworkers that I was really good friends with, she quit like 1 year into the job. So she
Hmm.
quit before me. And I was like, well, if she could do it, like I just need to figure out a way for me to do it, right?
Yeah.
So when you set that intention, I think the universe works in really magical ways. You don't know how it's going to happen, but when
Hmm.
you just trust that it's going to happen the way it's meant to be and you have that end goal, the how works itself out. And I think that's really
So
what
true.
happened.
It's so true. But so many of us let the fear of the unknown keep us from like
Mm,
trusting, you know? And I see that so many times, like people are so unhappy in their corporate job. Like your story is exactly mine. I was looking at my management and executives and I was like, that is not the life that I want to live. I definitely felt like I got bamboozled into that. I was like, wow, I don't want to climb the corporate ladder, but I didn't know how to get out, and I started through like online coaching, but I was terrified to take that leap. Like, but I knew the worst
hmm.
case scenario is that I just like am back in my corporate job at a different corporate job, you know?
Exactly.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the worst case scenario. And so I'll never know if I just don't like, try, at least try and
Yeah.
give it a shot and take the leap. And once you have that little taste of freedom where you can work on your own schedule, and I'm sure you've experienced this where you work really hard for yourself, but I'm like, I worked really hard for corporate. I might as well put all of
Yeah.
that into my own bank account and my own growth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Once you get that little taste of freedom though, like I could never go back. I was like, I could never work
Hmm.
for someone else again. So I would really love to hear your story. I know you were saying that your blog, you started to monetize your blog. Like, what were the platforms that you first started to monetize and grow that were like keeping you afloat? I'm sure you had like savings and stuff like that and a plan, but like what were the
Hmm.
things that started to monetize first and how did that grow into other streams of income? Because I know you have other offers. I'm sure you have other ways that you make money as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I think what was the most important was just packaging a service and selling it. And so in any way, shape, or form, I was packaging what I could do and selling it to people who needed it. That looked like shout outs on my Instagram. I was like, I can post, I can advertise on my page for like $25. I signed up for these agencies, these online agencies where they connected creators with brands. And so
Mm-hmm.
3 times a day in my inbox, I would get opportunities to work with these brands, create photo content, create advertising content for them. I was using Pinterest and Tailwind to market my posts. And that's when I learned, it's not enough to just post on your blog. You have to make sure a lot of people see it. I learned that also from e-commerce. It's like it's one thing to have a product, but you really need the marketing strategies behind it to get it in front of as many people. So I think the biggest aha moment for me was I had glamorized all of these influencers traveling to really nice places, working with like luxury hotels. And I always thought that was like a different world. I was like, they came from money or like they have something I don't. But what I started to learn as I befriended a lot of them and started entering the world of travel influencing is you just need all of these hotels to know about what it is that you offer. So I swear I would send out like 10 to 100 pitches every single day
Wow.
just to get my name out there and get myself in front of those media and PR agencies. And that's when the opportunities started snowballing because when you are in with one of the agencies, they have a portfolio of other hotels and travel brands underneath, and your name gets circulated so much quicker that way. And so that was a really big lesson in basically marketing yourself and marketing your services, but at the
Mm-hmm.
forefront, having something to sell and monetize.
Yes. So were you selling like photography and videography and then also like
Hmm.
doing posts on your own page to these,
Exactly.
different hotels and properties? I noticed like hotels and properties, they always want content for themselves 100%. Like that's something that I think will never go out. But I know that a lot of people will think, oh, I don't have a big enough following. I can't monetize that, or they fall into like some type of imposter syndrome when they're reaching out to brands and hotels. I know I definitely did. And it's like believing in yourself and believing in your worth and the value that you can provide. So I'm wondering if you ever experienced that where when you're doing all these pitches, especially it's a numbers game too. Like you're doing all these pitches and it's like crickets
Hmm.
sometimes. So I'm wondering if you ever had the imposter syndrome and at what point, like, where were you as far as like numbers, like when you started monetizing it? Because I think a lot of people think I need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers, and that's not necessarily always the case.
Yeah, no, not at all. So I would say I kind of started a little earlier. It was in 2016, and at that
Mm-hmm.
point, I had like less than 20,000. It wasn't large by any means, but because I had been ahead of the curve and I was putting myself out there, I think I landed more opportunities just because of, again, those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, I don't know the age of your audience, but if you're in your 20s or 30s, like in the grand scheme of things, what I realized back then was I'm still so young. Like I could screw up for 10, 20, 30 years and still be okay. So the fear wasn't really there because it was truly, and it still is, a time of my life where I think I should be taking the most risks. I should be putting myself out there and do things that would make people cringe, right? Because if not
Mm-hmm.
now, then when? Like I'm not going to
Yeah.
wait until I'm a grandparent and I
Yeah.
actually have a reputation. Well, who knows? So I think the fear and the imposter syndrome is very much self-imposed. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I still go through them, go through phases and go through these chapters, but you manage it differently. You recognize,
Mm-hmm.
A, when you're younger, it's like this fear of being seen. Over time, it's like a fear of being good enough. But at the end of the day, it's all self-imposed. There's always going to be that little mean girl voice in the back of your head trying to hold yourself back. If you can
Mm-hmm.
find a way to talk yourself out of it, whatever works for you, you're going to be so much farther ahead.
That's so true. It's so true. And like it really is just like the fear and the ego and that little mean girl that's keeping you from living your best life. Like the more that you can silence that. And I think what happens, at least for me, like I wasn't innately confident in myself and my ability, but I just started doing stuff and failing and trying and learning. And that started to build my confidence. Like, okay, I didn't
Mm,
die, like I can get
yeah.
through this. Like, or you hear back from a brand or someone that you pitch and you're like, okay, like that worked. And so, like, it's just one of those things that, like, the more that you just start being comfortable in discomfort, the more that
Yeah.
I think you just gain that confidence and that belief in yourself as well. So I
Yeah. And
love
not
that you're
taking it
like,
personally.
yeah, and I love
Yeah.
how you're like, you know what? I'm young right now, like might as well just go all out and see what happens, because if my mom always told me would always say if you never ask, the answer is always no. And if you never
Hmm.
try, that you're always in the same place. So I absolutely love that. Were there
Exactly.
any books or mentors that helped you kind of develop this? Like, I feel like you have a very resilient and a very strong mindset. Was there anything that really helped you along in your journey?
The book that I actually read in corporate that kind of changed my thinking completely is 4 Hour Work Week by Tim
Okay.
Ferriss.
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Mm-hmm.
read that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was very practical. I didn't agree with like 100% of it, but the
Mm-hmm.
general direction of what he, like this life he was encouraging and kind of broke it down, like how it all worked. It just made sense to me coming from a finance background. It was structured. It was like, you can do this. You like have this number to reach a month and then you reach it by doing this. And I was like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
that makes so much sense. From that, the mindset piece, I love Gary Vaynerchuk. He
Yeah.
was also like, he worked in New York City, and I was like, how can you think like this when all of my coworkers are thinking like this? So he was such a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened, or I watched a lot of YouTube videos as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved doing back then is like finding a really successful creator, and I still do this today, finding a successful creator and scrolling all the way back or sorting their videos from like the oldest to the newest, and you
I
see their
love
first
that
video.
because it reminds you everyone has a starting point.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it really, like, you can't ever compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, right? But you can compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 1. So if you go all the
Mm-hmm.
way back, you're like, whoa, they actually didn't start out with this entire production team and like a giant team. They were
Mm-hmm.
on their iPhones or like on their Macs just recording a YouTube video, just like me.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that. That's been a big part because it just reminds you that they put in the time and the work, and
Hmm.
things grew and they got better. Their skills got better. And then also, then they found the need to like, okay, maybe I'm going to invest in a camera. Maybe I'm going to invest in a microphone. Like, I know for me, like all of those things just happened gradually as I was putting out more and more content. Then you found the need for that. And I think a lot of people feel paralyzed from starting because they're like, I need it to look so perfect. And it's like, no, you just need to start.
Yeah.
You just need to get started. And then you'll start to slowly develop, you know, the equipment and the team and the products and all of that stuff. And like starting to find your own style too and how you like to shoot things. And you're really not going to know unless you just give it a try and see what happens. But I love that you do that because I do that too, especially, you know, like, because I'm like, I look at someone when they're on their chapter 30 and I'm like, I could never do that. I could never make my videos look like that, or I could never dance like that. And then you see where they started and you're like, oh yeah, they've just been doing this for 5-10 years. Like, duh. So, I mean, I love that. And the feeling of being a beginner and being okay being a beginner, I think is so, so important.
For sure.
So I would also love to know, because I have done like different travel deals, not a lot. Like I do a lot of more lifestyle stuff, but whenever I do travel, any type of content creation or partner with brands, and then you're also like on vacation. I don't know what's like for you because I think you live in certain spots for longer, but I feel like it's so hard to be in my normal like routine and habits and lifestyle and be productive. And I'm wondering if there's any like keystone things that you do, because you travel all around the world and you're constantly working, you know? And so I'm wondering, like, how do you manage that? Are there any things that you do to make yourself productive and organized and kind of structuring your day while everything's always different?
For sure. So I now stay in places for at least like a few weeks or a few months, but I totally get you. Like when you're working with hotels and travel brands, it's like a full-time job, right? You're not there on vacation. You're there creating content and working for them. So that's really natural and like a really natural feeling of feeling overwhelmed. But I think there's ways to manage it when you're really clear on the deliverables and you know exactly the shots, the frames, the videos, where you need to be, get all that done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then just document the rest as a creator and just having fun. But if you kind of like overwhelm yourself on the last day, like, did I get all those shots? It's going to be really nerve-wracking, right? And And the other thing I do with my business now, because I have the content creation side and also the coaching side, is a project management tool. Okay. So I use ClickUp, and it's basically where I brain dump everything in my business. So all the tasks, where I communicate with my team, and all the projects we have for this week, this month, this year. And it's broken down into these tasks that you assign due dates to and assign people to. So what I do is I brain dump everything that's going on in my mind, in my personal life, in my business. And I have this brain dump section where, you know, there's certain tasks where I don't want to focus on now, but I want to revisit in a month's time when my workload dies down, right? So I have everything in ClickUp and I'm able to just turn off when needed. And if I need to know what I want to do for the day, I just open it up and it tells me exactly what my to-dos are for the day, what's coming up tomorrow if I need to look at that. So yeah, like a project management tool is so key. You may have heard of Asana. That's another one.
I've heard of Asana. Is ClickUp an app also? Like you can have it on your phone? Okay. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can just plan out everything, and it's just been life-saving because as creators, you have so many moving pieces, right? You have so many different platforms, and a lot of times it's easy to just forget about something for a week and be like, oh my God, I totally forgot. Not if it's all organized. And that's what's been really helpful. Now I'm in England with like my partner's family, and, you know, I think we had to reschedule because we had dinner plans come up and stuff like that. So when life is hectic and it's not predictable, having this one kind of safe space where everything is organized, you're being reminded, it really helps.
And I love the brain dump aspect because I feel like once you get it out, you're like, okay, I don't have to stress and think about it. Like, I know it's there. I'm going to come to it. But I think it's when you're not doing that brain dump exercise and you're just thinking about all the thousands of things that you have to get done. Cause like as a creator and entrepreneur, the list never ends. It does. Like it never ends. And so like, I like to just do that brain dump also. Anytime it comes to my mind, like just get it out. And so I haven't found like a good project management tool. So I'm definitely going to look.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, because I love just like brain dumping everything I need to do because then I don't have to like hold on to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's super, super stressful in that sense. And also what you're saying when you're working with, you know, hotels and brands and all of that stuff, having that shot list, getting organized. I try to do that as much as possible, like getting very clear on the deliverables and trying to knock out everything that I need to get done. Because then, you know, if you're in a beautiful location, you want to at least try and enjoy it, you know, like a little bit. But I was finding that that balance very like, sometimes I go and I'm like, I don't really want to reach out to any hotels. I just want to be on vacation, you know, like, because like now I know like what the workload is like. And I'm like, no, like if I'm there for a long time, like maybe I can squeeze in like a little deal here. But other than that, like I'd really just like enjoy it, you know? As you know, you've been doing this for at least traveling the world for the last 5 years and being a creator and entrepreneur. What have been some of your biggest like challenges or struggles? Do you have any specific stories or moments in time where either you failed? Like I love talking about those things because I think from the outside, people think that it's just always easy and perfect, you know? And so I want to get really real and hear, you know, some of the biggest challenges that you've gone through over the last 5 years and how you navigated them.
I love this question. And it's so humbling to think about like where you were versus like where you are now, right? Because in the moment it's just so real, but then you see it as a memory and you're like, this is what I learned from it. So I distinctly remember in 2020, I had just launched my podcast, the Wanderlover Podcast. I was like one and a half years into my surfing journey. I was in Mexico and I just remember like breaking down crying in the water because I was so frustrated how like my podcast wasn't growing as fast as I had wanted to. The internet wasn't working in Mexico. And that was the place where I was like going live every day and like having live streams on Instagram and Facebook. And I needed to be in front of my laptop and things weren't working out in my business. It wasn't going smoothly and things just weren't growing. I wasn't like cross-stepping and hanging 10 on my surfboard. And I just like cried. It was very overwhelming. And I think what I learned from there and what I need to continue reminding myself is like entrepreneurship or new hobbies or anything you want to get really good at, it's a marathon and not a sprint. And I just have a tendency to be so impatient. I want results immediately. If I don't hit this imaginary threshold for myself, it means I failed. And it makes you kind of redefine what failure is, right? Because at that moment, I was like, I'm a failure and this isn't working. But I continued surfing. I continued with my podcast. I continued with my business. And now it's nowhere near where it was 3 years ago. And I applaud myself for continuing when I was so frustrated and so stressed and so irritated at how things were going. And I think in those moments, a lot of entrepreneurs feel that way and a lot choose to quit, right? Because the going gets hard. You're like, they're going so much faster. It's not working out for me. There must be something wrong with me. I'm not cut out for it. But I truly believe that every single successful person has gone through many iterations of that, but they just never stopped.
It's so true. It like the only way that you truly, it's so cliche, but the only way that you truly fail is when you quit and you give up and you don't keep on going, because the life and business are full of ebbs and flows, you know? And as far as like being a creator, I remember there was a whole year where I was losing hundreds of followers every single day. And I didn't know why. Like a whole year I was posting and everything, engagement, I don't know if the algorithm, whatever it was, but just things were tanking. And I kept on showing up for a whole year. And then eventually after showing up every single day for a whole year, something started to take off and I started to see the growth again. But a lot of people wouldn't stick that out. They would just get frustrated and quit. And especially when at least my livelihood depends on, you know, growing and having an engaging platform and community. like it's frustrating, you know? And so I think in
Mhm.
everyone's business, there's going to be those times where you have a launch and it totally flops, or your business is, you know, either declining or just stagnant. It's not growing, but it's either choosing to see it differently and looking at the opportunity to grow and changing your mindset, and also looking at it as an opportunity to maybe switch things up. Like if
Yeah.
things aren't working for you anymore, then maybe you need to pivot or adapt or try something new. And I think sometimes when things are cushy and easy, we don't try things new because it's working. You're like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
because you're
fine.
like, "Why?"
Yeah, why would you? But then it's when things get hard or things change, now you're like, okay, I'm going to switch things up. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to get outside my comfort zone, or I'm going to branch out here. I'm going to create a new offer. And that's when new opportunities happen. But in the moment, it's hard to think like that. You're just like, this sucks.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
but it really is, when you look back, like those are the defining moments when you can really look back and be like, dang, I'm proud of myself for hanging
Mhm.
on and moving through that.
Yeah,
So
and the expectation that it's always easy, if we can just get rid of that, I
yeah.
feel like it would just make so many people happier, and it just makes so much more sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is it supposed to be easy all the time?
Yeah, it doesn't have to, you know, like, and yeah, letting go of that expectation that it's going to be easy and flow. And yes, there are going to be times, especially because I'm sure you love what you do, right? And you love helping other people and mentoring and teaching them and getting to travel the world. But that doesn't mean that every single aspect of your business is just
Yeah.
easy and free and comes naturally. Like there's going to be a lot of challenging opportunities. So I love that, and just changing the narrative around
Mhm.
entrepreneurship and being a creator. Because sometimes even being a creator, people are like, oh, it's so easy. You just like snap pictures on your phone and you're like, it's definitely not that. I mean, I love my job and I would not go back to the corporate world, but like I work just as hard doing what I do now, if not harder. I
Yeah.
actually work harder now working for myself, you know?
Take them
So,
to a hotel collab where you're just shooting
oh,
24/7, and they're
oh
gonna
my gosh.
redefine
One
what it means.
time we
Yeah.
got a hotel collab and we landed. We were only there for 3 days and I got COVID. And it like
Oh,
hit
no.
me so hard when I was there that I couldn't get out of bed. Like I was just like, had a fever. I only had it
Oh,
for
I'm
3 days,
so
but we
sorry.
were only at the hotel for 3 days. And on the last day, I was like, okay, we have to shoot the content. Like we're leaving. We have to shoot. We had to like get up and shoot the content. And it was just like really, really, it was a
Oh my
struggle.
god. You
Yeah,
poor thing.
that was a fun
Yeah.
story. But like it's just stuff like that. And when people see the videos, they're like, "Oh, that was so good." And I'm like, "Yeah, I was sick when I shot that." So, uh yeah, I mean, it's never always sunshine and rainbows, but I'm sure when you
Mhm.
love what you do, you make the most of it. I would love to know when you started your mentorship and like teaching creatives and doing online coaching and creating that offer. Did it happen after you were really monetizing and doing it for yourself? You know, like create working with brands and hotels and all of that stuff. And then eventually you're like, I want to teach this, or people are reaching
Yeah.
out to you. Like, how did that evolve and start?
So when I was in Bali and I was working with hotels, a lot of people would ask me for social media tips, for branding tips. So I was like kind of consulting on the side. It really pivoted during COVID, during the pandemic, when
Really?
travel shut down and I wasn't traveling. We were stuck in Brazil. And I saw a huge need for people needing to make money online because they either lost their jobs or their brick and mortar store was closed. And I was like, well, I've been kind of helping people do this and monetize their Instagram and their social media. Let me cater to even more people and go public with it.
Hmm.
So during the pandemic, I think it was a blessing in disguise because I was kind of freaking out like, oh my God, I'm not traveling anymore. And what if, like, I can travel for God knows how long that was. I was
Hmm.
like, we're going to be stuck here forever.
Yeah.
So that was when I pivoted or not pivoted, I expanded
Hmm.
what the Wanderlover services were. I saw it as an opportunity. So I first started off with one-on-one coaching, and then we launched a mastermind. We have a course now as well as ebooks, and basically want to empower people, get the resources, get the community that they need to do it themselves, to do the same thing, build their own brand, launch their own services, and be able to book one-way tickets.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think COVID was a blessing in disguise for a lot of people that took it as an opportunity. I know for me, like that's when we really grew our platforms and turned into full-time creators. It was a result of COVID and like being locked down
Mm,
and stuff like that. So I mean, I think there was a lot of people, it affected a lot of people negatively, but if you had that mindset and you saw the opportunity to change or try new things, I think there's a lot of people who their life looks completely different in a great way
for
because
sure.
of that.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things where it's like when you're faced with adversity and challenges, like what do you do? You
Yeah.
know? And so and I know also I recognize I'm very privileged. Like, you know, we live a great life. Like we weren't super negatively impacted. And my boyfriend did lose his job as a result, but like, you know, we were getting by and making it work. And now we look back and we're just like, wow, like I can't believe that all happened. So
Hmm. I love what you said about mindset because I think it's really easy to see other people kind of struggling and make it through it, but not recognizing that if you are struggling yourself, like if you're listening and you're like, I'm not in a great position, it's in those really dark times when you can actually think different thoughts, right? And choose a different narrative for your life. I think that's what's really important to recognize is like you always have the choice within yourself. You don't have to wait until things get better. Like you can make things better. You can choose to think differently. And it's like you almost have to practice it. It's hard to explain, but it's not like we're different and we saw it differently. Like everyone had the opportunity to think differently.
mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so true. I love that you said that. I would love to know when you started doing the mentoring and the coaching like through COVID and stuff. And for someone that's maybe listening in and they're interested in becoming a travel creator, because I feel like when people think of Instagram influencers or creators, like they think of the travel space. Like that's it. They're like, I want to
Mm,
travel the world. I want to make money posting on social media. Like that's like the thing that comes to mind.
yeah.
But obviously they don't know a lot of the ins and outs of it. So what are
Hmm.
some of your biggest tips for someone who's interested in this space and they want to get started, they're curious about it, but they have no idea where to start?
Yeah, in my Facebook community, we nurture and we connect with new entrepreneurs just entering the space. And I just went live 2 days ago and I kind of explained that, like, if you want to travel full time, you have to get clear on your intentions. Do you want to make a business out of travel? And that's what I see a lot of people do. They're like, I want to travel, so I feel like I need to have a business in travel, either as a creator or a travel agent or something travel related. But then oftentimes, what I've been seeing a lot, like more than 80% of the time is like they'll have years and years of experience in another field. They're already seen as an authority in the industry and they could actually monetize faster bringing their expertise online than starting from square one and learning how to take photos and take videos and sell themselves as a content creator. And so a lot of times what I would encourage you to do is really write down like where your expertise is, what you're passionate about doing, and see where there is a money-making market online. I really love my online business model and I want everyone to know about it where like if you can have one-on-one services, group programs, if you can have digital courses, digital products, ebooks, templates, memberships, you can run your business from anywhere, right? Like you can monetize and you can travel. It doesn't have to be in the travel space. So I have a feeling that a lot of people listening, they're like, oh, I really want to do this. You know, they may have been a psychiatrist for like 10 years, or they could have been a fitness trainer for 10 years. Like, bring that online and integrate the travel piece with it because you're going to have so much more success if you're able to grow your cult following from your area of expertise. And that's going to help you land the collaborations and the opportunities in the travel space. Does that make sense?
I love that. I absolutely love that. I think, and also, I like one, it's just a quicker way to monetize, right? You're like, you're not
Mm-hmm.
starting from scratch. You already have this area expertise or something like that. But then also, I think you start to realize what you like or don't like as you're traveling and working online. And I know for me, I thought I wanted to get in the travel space, like working with hotels and stuff. And I was like, actually, I don't. I just want to like, and I was like, that's definitely not what I want. But like, I didn't know unless I like try the dip my toes a little bit. And I was like, no, like I don't. I'm not an expert in travel. I don't want people to come to me for travel advice. Like, I want to go to beautiful locations and enjoy it. And I want the freedom to be able to do it whenever I want and the money to be able to do it and like still monetize and make money. But I don't necessarily want to be in the travel space, you know? And
For
so,
sure.
and I think a lot of people, because they don't know the work that it entails, like it's definitely a lot of work. Like it looks all fancy schmancy on Instagram and stuff, but it's like a lot of work doing it. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that. And so I love what you're saying. Like, how can you just like monetize now? What are the skills that you can bring online where you can make money anywhere? And I'm a huge fan of digital products and digital downloads. I know a lot of people are like, when are you going to sell merch? And I'm like, I don't think I want to sell, at least right now, like I don't want to sell a physical product. I don't want to deal with all of that. And selling digital downloads and courses is kind of like my next step in how I want to grow my own brand and my own business as well. So, and it's just easy to do. Like you just need the internet, maybe like paying some type of membership fee for some type of platform to do a course. Like the costs are so low and anyone can do it.
Yeah,
and there's Google and there's YouTube, there's mentorship. Like you give out a lot of free tips on your own podcast and on your own Instagram. Like even if people don't buy from you, like you give out so much free content. I do think that when you invest in a program or a mentor, they help you get there faster, you know, because they basically just, they save you all the time that you would Google, you know, so, and like, and trial and error and fail on your own. So, and I think surrounding yourself with that community is super, super important too, because then you realize that like everyone's kind of going through the same problems as you and you're not alone. And I think sometimes they can feel very lonely.
Yeah.
You know,
and I love what you, like how you kind of distinguished what is best for your business next. And again, like if you're wondering what your first service should be, like what I've mentioned in the online space, like that's what I call my core online services, because you don't want to have your income rely on anything that's a physical product, that's location dependent, even collaborations. As part of my business, I see that as like passion projects. Some clients will come to me and they're like, I want to sell stickers. And I'm like, that's great. And you can, but let's not have your income reliant on stickers, because that's going to take a huge volume. It's going to take shipping, logistics. We don't want to deal with that. So build out your core online offerings first. And then your passion projects can be passion projects where you're not like sucking the fun and the life out of them because you're trying to make it work, right?
Did you ever have any, I know you worked in finance, but you seem so knowledgeable in like the entrepreneurial space. And was this all just like from experience and trial and error and just figuring it out on your own and learning as you go?
Yeah, so I studied business in college and I specialized in finance and marketing and entrepreneurship, but a lot of the social media space, like because it's so new and our professors, you know, didn't teach us this, they didn't grow up with it. So that was all trial and error. And I think that's a reflection of my personality. Like I dive headfirst into it. I try it out, see what works and learn from experience. I think like you probably know for yourself, like the more you do it, the more you learn. And that learning is so much more valuable than anything you can kind of like watch someone else do.
Yeah, that's so true. When you were, you know, starting out your own business and being a travel creator, what were some of the, I guess, like highlights or aha moments that made you like so passionate about this? You know, like what is your favorite part about your job? I guess.
Oh my God. There's so many.
Yeah. So like name them all. I really want people to feel inspired too, you know, that they can do this and also like what's possible for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think my whole like agenda in my life so far has been like chasing freedom. So when I studied abroad, I had an online job where I was like a teacher assistant for my school. And that's when I got a taste of location freedom, but not time freedom, because I had to sign on and clock in at certain hours and I was like still working for someone else. Then when I was like drop shipping, doing e-commerce, still in New York, I had the time freedom, but I didn't have the location freedom or the financial freedom because I was still trying to make things work, wasn't monetizing quickly in the beginning, and I needed to ship. I had to hold inventory in my apartment. I had to like ship things out. And then when I quit my job, it was a sense of having the location freedom and time freedom. But I was like, I want to be able to live in Hawaii for 6 months. I want to travel to Monaco and spend all my summers in Europe, just spending like tens of thousands of dollars a month, like if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And when my business took off, when I implemented everything strategically and I was able to achieve that financial freedom that I had set for myself, because in Tim Ferriss's book, he's like, how much money do you need to be making a month in order for you to be living your dream life? Once I hit that number, that's when I was like, oh my God, I have time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. I started surfing, and with surfing, like you really have to go when the tides are right, when the winds are right, like it's dependent on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that I surfed with, they'd be like, oh no, I have to work, or like, I can't go tomorrow because, you know, my hours aren't great. But I was truly able to surf like whenever I wanted, for however long I wanted. I got to travel to places where the surf was good at certain times of year. And I think that's what is just so freeing for me, like why I'm so passionate about what I do. And then when I achieve that, then helping my clients do the same, like seeing them go from that place where they're like, I feel stuck. I feel like I don't have financial freedom, or I don't have time freedom or location freedom. And then seeing them kind of build this up for themselves and ticking the boxes. I'm like, oh my God, I'm experiencing your joy and your excitement like all over again, because I know what it was like for me. And it's just so powerful and so incredibly, like I'm so incredibly blessed to be able to do this full time.
I love that. I absolutely love that. How long did it take you, you know, when you were saying to reach that number, that like monthly number, how long did it take you to get there?
Yeah, that number changed like many times, because I was like, oh, at first, like $5,000 a month would be really nice. But that $5,000 a month was when I was like staying in Bali. And then that's when I was like, I want to like live in Hawaii. And for Hawaii, like apartments, like studios started at 2,000, 3,000 a month, you know? So
Yeah.
that number kept changing. But for me, and I think everyone's different when you do this exercise, like list out what your monthly rent, your expenses, every single thing you're spending money on. If you want to rent a really nice car, like what do you want to do with your life? It's going to look different than mine. For me, my priorities are surfing, a stable internet connection. So if I need to buy internet, if I need to buy a car, like that's all factored in there. Because it changed so often, I think like between the time I set the number and hit the number, it would usually take maybe around 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Formulating a plan, of how
taking
I was going to
action.
reach that number and taking action.
I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, you know, like, and even the 3 to 6 months of like setting a new goal for yourself, you've already had all of this work and all this foundation of all of this prior stuff that you were doing. And it would still take you 3 to 6 months to kind of get to that next level. And so I think a lot of us just, people in general in our culture lack patience. We order something, we want it in an hour, you know, like we lack the patience, and some things just take time. You know, like you gotta trust the process, that if you keep on showing up, you keep on believing and being in that vibration and taking action, that it will happen for you. But it's just going to take some time and take some patience, you know? So
yeah. And I want to factor in that like having that new income goal, I would like invest in new courses or new mentors or programs that I knew would help me get there, right? So it wasn't like I was profitable every single month until those 6 months. I've definitely, you know, reinvested into the business and like quote unquote lost money, but was actually reinvesting in myself to build that runway to make that income. So it's never a straight line upwards. It's a lot of ups and downs. But I think the most important thing is once you get there once, you can replicate it and you can move on from there.
I love that. And reinvesting in yourself is so important, either in your business or just in your own mindset and your own belief and whatever new skills that you're trying to learn. Like I'm constantly investing money into my own personal growth, because I think a lot of the times, and I know for me, I get a lot of the questions of like, is the content creator life stable? Like, can you actually make a living out of that? And you know, is it financially stable? And to that, I respond like, does anyone remember COVID when so many people lost their stable jobs? like everyone thought that their job was so stable and they got furloughed or laid off. And the truth is that no one's job is stable. But I think at the end of the day, like if you have the skills where it doesn't matter the environment, you know that you're going to be okay and you're going to be able to monetize it and you're going to be able to take risks and you're going to be able to figure out a way. Like that to me, it creates the stability.
Yeah.
Is that like belief in my own self to get through anything, you know?
And I think it's so relative what people think they need for a stable life. And I think another defining moment of my travels, like I was in Fuerteventura at a surf camp, and I met one of the instructors. He was like from Venezuela, and he was telling me, like, he was older than me, and he was like, I just want to save up like 3,000 euros and I want to travel the world for 2 years. Like, that is my dream. And I was like, what? Like, you can do that? Like, for him, it was such a big amount of money.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, what? Like, I was so confused.
Like for a year?
Like more, yeah.
More than a year? Oh my gosh.
And so that's when I was like, my perception comes from such a limited like narrative of what I need for my life, obviously, or like I didn't have the same mindset as him. So it really got me thinking, and it was a very like impactful moment where I realized that numbers are so relative. And if I wanted to redefine what $3,000 meant to me, or 300,000 or 3 million, it's so relative to so many people.
It is.
And at what point do you say like, that's a stable number, right? Because for him, it's like $3,000 is a stable number. And then people are like, well, is that a stable job? And I'm like, what do you consider a stable job? It really is so relative.
It is so relative. And then also you start to normalize your own income, right? Like you start to like normalize like that and get comfortable within that zone. So then you're like stretching yourself to like new things, or you're constantly trying to reach that new goal. Or when things aren't what you're used to, like within that like thermometer, then you fall into that scarcity mindset. So it really, and whereas that scarcity mindset for like that $3,000 is like someone else is like, I can travel travel the world for a year. So it really is like relative and like shift, and it's all energy at the end of the day. Like money is just like energy. It's just a vibration, just as anything is. So I love everything that you just said. Like you are speaking my language, and everything that you're saying, I'm just like, yes. So for anyone that's tuning in that doesn't know who you are, this is their first time hearing from you, where can they find you, and what services or offers can you provide? And I will link everything in the description for anyone that wants more of you.
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Instagram at The Wanderlover, or check out my website, thewanderlover.com. My DMs are always open. You can join my free Facebook group, The Wanderlover Community, or tune into the podcast where I share tips every single Monday and new episodes. And that's the Wanderlover Podcast. If you're looking to start your online business, I would recommend checking out the Business Academy. And if you're looking to scale and see your first 6 figures, look into Momentum Mastermind.
Yay! Okay, thank you so much, Danielle. And I will tune in. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode, and I will see you guys next time.